Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Aba'im to everybody. Today, Thursday, the 12th day of Tevet, corresponding to the 16th day of December. Today's class graciously dedicated for the Refuah Shelema of David Ben Polin, Mr. David Towel, as well as by on Refuah Shelema as well of Yeshaya Ben Lora, Mr. Charlie Saka. Additionally, sponsored by Ishaq and Sylvia Shina for the zechut of their son Daniel and wife Jen, be blessed with Zera Shel Kayama. Additionally, by Manuel Salem and family in honor of his wife and newborn baby girl, they should be blessed with Beracha, Naslaha, Parnasa, health, Shalom Bayit, Bechol Mileh de Betav, and also today's class dedicated Mrs. Loris Moseri, Yafa Bat Julia, Aliyah Shalom, in a song that the words of Torah elevate her neshama in Gan Eden. Amen. So today's Perashah Vayhi discusses the final chapter of the life of Yaakov Avinu. The Perashah begins, Vayhi Yaakov be'eres Misraim. Yaakov Avinu lived in the land of Egypt. Our rabbis tell us that, interesting enough, if you look at the word Vayhi, which means and he lived, we have the secret of from the entire life of Yaakov Avinu, that they were altogether 147. The way the Torah will tell us, from this 147, there were 34 years in the life of Yaakov that we can consider them great years of his life. And with the secret is found in the word Vayhi. Because if you add the letters together, Vav Yod 16, Het Yod 18, 34. Where these 34 years come from? The 17 years from the birth of Yosef till when he was sold into Egypt, plus the last 17 years of the life of Yaakov Avinu. And that's what the Pasuk says. And Yaakov Avinu lived in Egypt 17 years. And all the years of the life of Yaakov were 147. Only. Yaakov Avinu, alayhi shalom, was supposed to live 180. Like Abraham, like Ishaq. Ishaq merited to live 180. Abraham lived 175. Yaakov lived 147. And there are reasons why this happened. In the case of Ishaq, we already know. He lived his life cycle 180. Abraham passes away 5 years prior to his due date. Why? Short answer, because the day that Abraham Avinu was niftar, according to some midrashim, it was actually when Yaakov and Esav became bar mitzvah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Abraham Avinu 5 years prematurely, not to see the decadence of Esav, his grandson. Imagine yourself for a minute, you are Abraham Avinu. Imagine, you're Abraham. By the way, we all are Abraham. We are all Ishaq, we are all Yaakov, we are all Yosefs. Why? Because each and every one of them is responsible for a different area or part of our DNA. For example, Abraham is responsible for chesed, kindness. So every time we do an act of kindness, at any level, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual, we are emulating Abraham. Every time we show a certain level of discipline in our spiritual life, like getting up, coming to pray, following halakha, having the schedule, saying, okay, this is kasher, this is not, I need to say this beracha, I need to say that beracha, etc. Those are simple examples, but guess what? Every time we reach that situation in our day or in our life that we need to make a decision or a determination based on Torah, halakha, or Torah values, we are in a way activating the midah of Ishaq. What was Ishaq Avinu essence? Discipline. This was Ishaq Avinu. Although many times we attribute from a Kabbalistic perspective the essence of Ishaq Avinu has Devora, has judgment, but that judgment is not the way we say judgment, only judgment. No, Devora means what? Gibor. What's the meaning of Gibor? The Mishnah says, Ezehu Gibor, who is the strong person? HaKovesh et Yisro, who conquers the Yeser. So the Yeser Hara comes to you. He comes to me every day, by the way. Maybe you're a tzaddik, so to you it doesn't know. But to me, without fail, every day he comes to me. He says, Yosef, you don't have to get up so early. You can use 5 more minutes. That's how he comes to me. He comes to me like a tzaddik. And he tells me, there is a pasuk in the Torah that says that you have to take care of your health. And the Rambam, he quotes me the Rambam that says you're supposed to sleep 8 hours a night, between 6 to 8. You only slept 5.5. You know, you should have more hours. There is a late minyan. And many times we go into battle. That's why I put 2 alarm clocks. One next to me and one a bit far. So I have to wake up. You may ask, what about your wife? Thank God she doesn't listen to my alarm clocks. I don't know how that miracle, it's a big miracle that happens to me. I asked her, did you hear the alarm clock? She said, no, which one? So I feel good. Okay, the sheila will be if, but anyways, so the Yeser Hara comes and tells us to do something. And then suddenly I said, or you say to yourself, because this is a simple nisayon. Sometimes the nisayon could be with the food. Sometimes the nisayon could be on reaction. Sometimes could be a nisayon of arguing, God forbid. So when a person says, you know what, I need to do what I need to do, we are activating Ishaq Avinu in our life. Then we come to Yaakov. Yaakov from the abode was the one who lived the shortest life. And I did speak about this topic a while back, not publicly in this type of class, but I think that today I'll take a few moments to analyze what exactly happened in the life of Yaakov Avinu alav shalom. So we all remember last week when Yaakov Avinu comes to Misraim and Yosef finally informs Yaakov of Mehila. Yosef informs Paro. And now comes the pasuk and it says, Vayave Yosef et Yaakov. Yosef introduces his father to Yaakov. Now to Paro, Mehila. Now Paro is happy, in a sense. He was happy, but he wasn't happy. He was happy to meet the father of the one who really settled his kingdom with the Egyptian nation. Because yes, Paro was the king, but at the end of the day, who saved the day in Egypt? Yosef. But on the other hand, Yosef was a Jew. And that's the reason why Paro changed the name of Yosef. How does Yosef is called by Paro? Safenat Paneach. Why doesn't he call him Yosef? Short answer, the Mefarshim say, so there will not be an association that a Jew saved Egypt. You give him a new identity card. Now we give you Egyptian citizenship, and we give you a new name, we give you a new identity. We don't want any Jewish memory of your background. That's the reason why Paro changed the name of Yosef. So the pasuk says that Yosef brings Yaakov, his father, Vayamideu lifnei Paro, is in front of him, Vaybarech Yaakov et Paro, and Yaakov blesses That's the literal meaning of the verse. The commentaries explain that Yaakov Avinu actually engaged in conversation with Paro, which was the protocol back then to visit the king. And Rashi says, saludar bela'az. Saludar, saluder, to say hello. Very nice. Vayomer Paro el Yaakov. Now comes Paro and asks Yaakov Avinu, Kama yemeh shene hayecha. How old are you? Now this question, it doesn't really make any sense. You meeting the father of your viceroy. Is this what you ask him? How old are you? So one opinion explains that Paro saw in Yaakov Avinu an unbelievable level of aging. Yani yes, he was old, but excessively old. So one opinion says that he asked him, how old are you? You're from last century. Yani. Other opinion says no. The rule in Egypt was that anybody who needed to come and see the king, you will have to go into the chamber of the king. And the way to access the chamber of the king, it was a custom-made doorway. That custom-made doorway was custom-made to the height of the king, to the height of Paro. Anybody who needed to go and was taller than Paro needed to bow down to go into the room. They did it in purpose. So people will worship Paro. But there were two times in history. You know, Borei Olam protects the Tzaddikim. One was in the time of Abraham, one was in the time of Yaakov. What was the miracle? That the door, so to speak, opened up in their honor, according to their height. Paro had a good friend, a troublemaker, problematic person. His name was Og, the famous Og who survived the king of Bashan, who survived the flood. The flood. Noah, his wife, 3 sons, 3 daughters-in-laws, plus Og. Those were the survivors. So comes Og and asks Paro, ask him, how old is he? Because I saw this in round 1 when Abraham and Sara came. Is this the same fellow? So comes Yaakov and it says, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. Yaakov answers Paro, Yemeh shene megurai, the days of my life. But interesting enough, the Torah uses the word megurai. Megurai comes from Lashon Ger. What does it mean? I was jumping from place to place. I lived in Israel, then I escaped my brother, I went to yeshiva, then I went to Haran, then I came back and made my brother, then my wife Rachel passed away in Bethlehem, then I moved to one location, then my son was sold, disappeared, he didn't say sold, disappeared, then I encountered him 22 years, and now I'm moving back. Just talking, I'm tired of thinking how many different change of addresses Yaakov Avinu needed to do in his life. That's exactly what this means. It says, Yemeh megurai, I don't have a fixed address. Depends on the situation where I live. Sheloshim ad shana, I'm currently 130 years. Me'at berabim hayu yemeh shene hayai, and that's where the trouble begins. Me'at, limited. Ra'im, I don't have any other word what to say about this explanation. Ra'im in Hebrew means what? Bad. My life was a bad life. Velo isigu yemeh shene hayai, במחילה, ולא השיגו את ימי שני חיי אבותיי, בימי מגוריהם. It says, even though that I live in the land of my parents, Abraham and Isaac, yet they had a great life. I had a very miserable, difficult life. This pasuk shortened the life of Yaakov Avinu. Why? Because he's complaining. He's complaining. You may say, but Rabbi, why not allowed to complain? Honestly speaking, the less we complain, the better we live. Not only it doesn't help, not only that, let's talk for 15 seconds in marriage. What is one of the things they tell you in the books of Shalom Bayit? Compliment instead of complain. They are almost the same letters. They mean two different things. Mazbut? You clear with that? Chazak Baruch, you're a good student. I know that. How do I know that? Because his wife is happy. And when I see the wife that is happy, it means that the husband is doing his due diligence. Be'ezat Hashem. 100%. Now, let's analyze very quickly the challenges of Yaakov and the results of the challenges. Let's clarify one thing. God forbid, no one can minimize the pain of Yaakov Avinu from day one of his life. He was born forcefully. His brother Esav wanted to get rid of him on the spot. It's a known fact. That's why Yaakov grabbed the ankle of Esav. Why do you think he grabbed the ankle of Esav? Because Esav wanted to crush Yaakov. And that's why when Esav came out of Rivka's womb, he destroyed her reproductive organs. And she wasn't able to conceive again. This was Esav. This was Esav. And there was this dispute. Why? Because Esav, till his bar mitzvah, everybody was saying, as the Baal HaTurim says, Khalil, walad, yani, it's a child, young kid. Says the Baal HaTurim. It says you can't wait till a child becomes bar or bat mitzvah to start educating them. If you wait till then, you're 12 years behind, or Haz v'Shalom, too late. That's what people used to say. Travieso. In Spanish they say, yani, how do you say in English? Malish. It's in Arabic, okay. Travieso means, menace. Like a troublemaker, but it's cute. So what cute? What cute? That he became a murderer? That's what happened the day that Abraham Avinu passed away. What did Esav do? Killed Nimrod. And that's why the pasuk says, he came to Yaakov from the field starving. That day, he committed the worst transgressions of the Torah. Adultery, idolatry, and murder. That's why his neshama was tired. And he knocked down the neshama. And now he said, Min ha'adom, from the red. And there are many explanations on that food. Okay, don't use a plate, as we learned yesterday concerning food. I'm going to finish it. Don't dirty a plate. Give me the whole pot. Vacuum cleaner, as we said yesterday. Now, let's go back to Yaakov. So we already know that Yaakov and Esav don't have a good relationship. Then the Berachot. Esav wants to kill Yaakov. Then he goes to Lavan. Cheated Lavan Yaakov ויחלף את משכורתי 10 מונים 100 times. Every time they sat down to negotiate at the end of the season, no, there was this expense, an unexpected tax, an unexpected expense, increase in the insurance, Suddenly, how much you get? $299. Say, but hold on, we made 1,000. Yeah, but employees and tax and social security, Medicare. So when we were profit, we were partners in the gross, not in the net. This is 100 times. Then before that, Leah and Rachel. Then the incident with Dinah. Then the incident with Yosef. Then the incident with Shimon and Binyamin. Yehuda and Tamar. All these names that we are mentioning somehow, somewhere affected Yaakov Avinu's life. And we don't minimize, God forbid, for 1 second, the pain of Yaakov Avinu. And we know well that pain and suffering affects the lives of the person. And we're not even talking only about stress level. You know, sometimes it affects the body of the person. But with all that being said, we know well that most of these incidents in the life of Yaakov, despite the original problems and challenges, they all had a happy ending. Esav and Yaakov separated for good. Yaakov became very wealthy. He did marry Rachel and Leah. He had the Shevatim. Yosef is alive and well. Shimon, Binyamin, and everyone, thank God, settled. Even Dinah, the unfortunate incident of Dinah with Shechem, that was a very difficult time for Yaakov Avinu. But even that, the baby born, as we learned in last week's class, born Osnat, right? She was the daughter of Dinah and Shechem. Who did she marry? Yosef HaSandik. She was the wife of Yosef. The mother of Ephraim and Menachem was the baby born from the rape of Shechem to Dinah. Sure. That's how, because when Dinah became pregnant, started some family feud between the siblings, who's going to marry her, we don't want her, so Yaakov Avinu took care of the matter. Who adopted Osnat? Potiphar. She was sent to Egypt through a special heavenly delivery system. Not Pony Express, not Wells Fargo, not FedEx or DHL. But Yaakov Avinu summoned Malachi Sharet, delivered her with a kemia. Some known mefarshim on this topic. And that's how she married Yosef. And Ephraim and Menashe were born from this relationship. So even this tragedy of Dinah, yes, problematic relationship, violation, etc. But at the end of the day, everything fall into place. So let's count the words of complaint of Yaakov. Okay? 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So the words of the complaint are 25 words. So why 33 years was deducted? Because we add the question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the combined numbers of the question and the answer, 33 words. For every one of these words, a year off. It's heavy. Welcome to the Safra Synagogue. It's heavy. Heavy. For one complaint, he was honest. He didn't lie. But this was the midah of Yaakov. Pasuk in Mincha says, Titen emet leYaakov. Yaakov doesn't lie. But nevertheless, not all the time to complain brings benefits to the person. From a deeper Kabbalistic source, there is a reason on the years of Abraham, Yaakov, and Yosef HaSandik. I saw this in the name of Rabbeinu Ha'ari, brought down by the Pituchei Hotam, that discusses the life of David HaMelech. Remember the 70 years of life of David? Now, where these years came from? Most of us will say Adam HaRishon, because that's what we learned for years. That opinion is still valid. But there is another opinion that says that the years of David, after Adam HaRishon reversed his initial offering, because you have to remember, Adam HaRishon made this donation of years to the life of David in the beginning of his life. When his time of departure came, they tell him, okay, remember, 930 years ago, you signed a document. He says, I want to reverse the document. Says there is no return policy. You donated 70 years, and Adam HaRishon says, I donated them because I didn't know what I was doing. Now I understand the value of life. I need to be in this world for longer. Obviously, we know the end of that story, that Adam HaRishon lived only 930, and these 70 years were lingering. Who takes them now? Because the moment that he says, I don't want them, we have an issue. So Rabbeinu Ari says they got a backup plan. They put together the life of Yosef, Yaakov, and and Abraham Avinu. I'm 98% sure that this is the final answer based on Rabbeinu Ha'ari. I am not sure if there is one more investor in the life of David HaMelech. Maybe there is a fourth investor, but these three names, I know them for sure. Abraham, Yaakov, and Yosef HaSadik. They all invested in the life of David HaMelech. Now, you may say, why such a harsh punishment between God to Yaakov? He wasn't lying, he's a man. It is true. But when you talk to a goy, when you talk to someone, doesn't matter Jew or Gentile, but in this case to a Jew, he made God look bad. You follow what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that he looked at every scenario with a problem, instead of seeing every scenario with a solution. Now you may say, why God needs to be so harsh? The Gemara says, Sadikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu medagdek im sadikav kechunta se'ara. God has, let's call it, zero leniency or leeway with the Sadikim. So then you may ask, but Rabbi, relax. So, but why? If a person is a Sadik, why God shouldn't be lenient? I think that one of the explanations I saw in the books of Musar say that there is no bribing to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Asher lo isa panim velo isa shohad. A person may be a Sadiq and say, you know what? Because I'm a Sadiq, I have plenty of credit. My credit score is 850. So if I don't pay the tax or I don't pay the credit card bill one time, it's not going to affect me. The short answer is that it affects the person. And one deficiency, God forbid, can open up another one. I'll bring you one more example and this will finish the class. Example of Abraham and Sara. In the parasha, in the beginning of Sefer Bereshit, when there was this issue with Hagar in the house of Abraham. Remember? Hagar, Abraham, Ishmael, and Sara. What happened? One day, Abraham and Sara had an argument. Hamasi alecha, the wife complains. Why is she complaining? What Sara is complaining? At the way that Hagar is treating her. Okay? What does she say to Abraham Avinu? Ishpot Hashem beni ubenecha. May God be the judge between you and I. You know what our holy rabbis tell us? Every time you invoke judgment against the person, you pay the price. In Spanish, it's very common that people say the following: que Dios te lo pague. Now that can be said in a happy mode, in a beautiful way, which means in English, may God reward you, or could be in a malicious way. Yani, whatever you're doing to me should happen to you. That's a curse. And that's what happened with Sara. She said 4 words. Ishpot Hashem beni ubenecha. Ah, yes? How many years were shaved from Sarah's life? 38 years, I believe. She lived 127. She was supposed to live 165. 38 years were removed. Again, we see the harsh judgment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we need to understand. Yes, we feel bad that Yaakov and Sarah's life was shortened. We have questions, we don't have answers. But remember one thing that we learned in the past. The Torah, but specifically Sefer Bereshit, it's a book of lessons. It's not a storybook. Oh, hi, so beautiful. They saw each other, they hugged each other, they cried, and they live happily ever after. In the case of Yaakov, thank God, the final chapter of his life was very peaceful because he saw his children, he saw his grandchildren, he saw Yosef flourishing at all levels. So that brought certain happiness to the life of Yaakov, which was the opening statement of today's class. The pasuk says, Vayhi Yaakov. The best years of Yaakov's lives were 34, from the birth of Yosef till the selling of Yosef, and from the moment that Yaakov came to Egypt at the age of 130, and he dies on the age of 147. But as I said before, the Torah, yes, it brings sometimes stories, but we need to understand, Rabotai, that one of the reasons why the Torah brings some stories, for example, like Yaakov, like Sara, and if I am allowed to extend the class for 1 more minute, the one and only Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened with Moshe? He hit the rock. Ah, you hit the rock? No more traveling to Israel. Stand shway. For one time that he displays anger, says Moshe Rabbeinu had an opportunity to sanctify God's name. He acted in a way that showed a certain pattern of behavior by Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm embarrassed to speak this way because who am I to speak? But I'm only saying what's written in the holy books. And the pasuk says it. Ya'an lo emantem bi lehakdisheni. You did not believe in me to sanctify my name. You had an opportunity to sanctify my name. Anger, that's the worst part of you. Now we're paying the price. So the consequence, it's befitting to the one that committed this transgression. But I'll tell you a secret. According to the holy books, and that's why it's important, as we learned yesterday, to learn the Mishnah, the Gemara, the commentaries. Also, when it comes to learn the Perashiot, don't just read the translation. Read the footnotes, read the commentaries, and it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, alav shalom, made the following calculation in his mind. And Moshe Rabbeinu says the following: if I talk to the rock, and the rock listens to me, and fulfills the will of God, which is to bring water, this will create a problem for the Jewish people in the future. What is the problem? Kitrug. Kitrug in English means accusation. The heavenly judicial system, when it comes to judge the Jewish people, will say, listen, the rock, that is an inanimate object, listened to God's request of bringing water for the Jewish people. You are human, you have a brain, you have speech, you have an neshama, you did not listen. Is the worst consequence is the giving charity. If a person, a needy person, God forbid, doesn't need charity, doesn't give charity, right, is understood. But if a person that is very successful financially doesn't give charity, the question is even bigger. According to the Mekubalim, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I rather pay the price to protect the Jewish people rather than the Jewish people will be accused by the rock. Again, we are humans and we don't understand everything from the Torah, or we don't understand everything from the Tzaddikim. And I'm not trying to say, God forbid, that we're going to start making calculations like Moshe Rabbeinu. Like somebody may say, oh, let me bring an extreme example, for example, right? Okay. One time, you asked a person, why don't you send your kids to Jewish school, for example, right? No, because the cost of tuition. So I'd rather send my kids to public school that is free and give $1,000 tzedakah to the synagogue every month. It sounds like a generous thought, but that's a way completely forbidden to have. Forbidden, not inappropriate. Because you think that Hashem wants your tzedakah, like Hashem wants the spiritual well-being of your children. So don't give tzedakah. Don't give tzedakah. If a person reaches that level, other tuition or give a nice donation to the synagogue, keep your money for the tuition. Because that's a salat nefashot. That's saving your future and preserving the future of the Jewish people. And that's why I'm saying this, that I don't want anyone to chas v'shalom to say, oh, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do that. No, I'm only bringing these isolated scenarios in order to create an awareness that tzaddikim, their own lives become a source of living example, like Sara's case. So what do we learn from that case? Don't involve God in a dispute. Don't call for judgment, because you're going to pay the price. Why? Like the Hafetz Chaim says, if you invoke God in judgment, we need to know that there is going to be a boomerang effect. The moment that judgment was activated against one person, whoever activated that judgment gets judgment activated for themselves. Clear? Chazak. Yaakov, what do we learn? Don't complain. Of course. Like a couple asked me a while back, so Rabbi, I cannot complain? The husband asks me. He says, yes, you can complain, but it needs to be done tactfully, properly, not in the moment of a discussion, and rehearse what you're going to say. And you can ask forgiveness in advance. Occasionally, if I have to say something, usually that's how I plan myself mentally. First, I make the question to myself, is it necessary or is not going to help? And if I have to do it, is for a purpose or stand to pick on someone? The more we think, you will realize that, you know what, not a big deal. Being mevater to a certain extent, being easygoing in life, makes the life of the person healthier and happier, etc. In the case of Moshe Rabbeinu, what was the issue? Anger. It's a pasuk says. When anger is activated, the person changes. When anger is activated, wisdom departs from the person. When anger is activated, prophecy departs from the person. Before we finish, we have a question quickly here, and it says, if this is the way everything I said, why did he pray over 500 times to enter Eretz Israel? Excellent question. Yes, we know Moshe Rabbeinu prayed 515 times the word Vayethanan, right? The famous Berasha in Sefer Devarim. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu says, maybe after a while, God changed his heart. God had a change of mind. God sees that I recognize my mistake. God sees that I'm trying to improve. Maybe the change of the decree will be given. But we know the Almighty said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe, Rav Lach al Tosef. I hear you, I understand, but the answer is no. It's like sometimes people come to me and give me suggestions. And I welcome suggestions. But I shouldn't say more often, but often you will hear me that I say, thank you for the suggestion, but no thank you. Why? Because as a rabbi, I know a lot of things that people perhaps don't know in the leadership or in the management or in the spiritual need of the community. Somebody wanted to come and give a lecture, etc. And I said to him, everything is wonderful, everything is beautiful, but it's not for my audience. Why? Because I did some research and I understood that, some of the content of the topic is not in the proper parameters of the Torah. And this is something that you need to know. Not every speaker that every synagogue brings is the right speaker for that synagogue. Correct? You agree? Hazak. You see? But this is where the Torah ideals or hashkafa come into play. Torah is not only the learning. Torah is not only the life that a person has, but Torah is the values of the ideals, the Torah ideals. Yesterday we had a rabbi's meeting with 40 rabbis. This room full. Started at 11:15 and finished by 2:30. We had a lecture on different topics. One of them was education. And it's a new thing now that rabbis must step up to the plate in the topic of education. What does it mean in the topic of education? It doesn't mean, which is something that we already do for a while in this congregation, as many of my colleagues from the north and from Florida, Baruch Hashem, we get involved in a good way, helping the family, helping the school. Sometimes a child is not performing in school. I had a conversation with the principal of a school a few days ago, and we share information about a particular student. A particular student. So then in the conversation, we made aware each other of certain situations that are happening at home. Now, schools don't get involved most of the time of what's happening at home. Schools educate, occasionally maybe a counselor may become aware, but guess what? They shift that responsibility to the rabbis. So now the rabbis need to step up to the plate, which I'm not afraid of doing so. My list of customers grows every day. Okay, and I'm not talking about iTorah crowd or you that come and learns every day, but of peripheral situations. Sometimes it's livelihood, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's shalom bayit, sometimes it's education, sometimes, God forbid, could be health matters, sometimes it's mental health, which today is a whole new ballgame. Today, mental health is taking an unfortunate, important role in the lives of people. Blame society, blame the person, or just COVID, Hazaku Baruch. Hazaku Baruch. COVID brought a lot of things. One good thing that brought COVID, statistically speaking, more babies to the world. So happy news. Thank God. Baruch Hashem. But it also brought
more deaths.
Yes, Hazrat Shalom. The opposite. God forbid. And financial challenges and mental health issues and addictions, God forbid. So yesterday training conference wasn't, I don't think it was a training, but it was just to make an awareness, at the roles of the rabbinate and the educators that need to be, a team effort. It's no longer school, synagogue. Now they supplement each other, because at the end of the day, we want to take care of if there is any issue or any challenge with a student, okay? We need to take care of it now. Can't wait till the child finishes high school or turns 20, 25 years old, and then you ask, what happened? Well, you didn't see what happened? You lost the battle. And to finish in a happy note, that's the reason why in our synagogue we invest a lot on the youth. You may not see it because you live now, and afternoon each one prays in different places or people leave. But if you come later, much later, you'll see almost every night of the week that we have programs for the teens, and 3 times a week for the children below the age of bar mitzvah. And they come after a full day of school. Obviously, incentives are part of the program. Menu, raffle, the kids are going to go on a trip tomorrow, 3-day trip. But only those that qualify. Qualify means coming to the classes, coming to the Shabbat minyan on time, coming to the Shabbat program in the afternoon, good behavior, zero bullying, proper praying. Today, we can't just hide it under the rug. Today, these words are part of our vocabulary because we see the results through the years. To a point that there was a child that somebody bullied in school, and they have to get involved. Baruch Hashem, thank God, things are much better. But, can't just say only do weddings. Sometimes you have to put up fires as well. But with the beautiful Torah that we have, and the lessons of our Hachamim, as the Gemara says, Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim. Hacham David Yosef is here, as you know. Be'ezat Hashem, he will be with us Shabbat. Today, I'm not there with him, but since 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock tonight, booked. 6 schools, 2 kolelim, besides occasional private appointments. What does he do? He comes and he gives hizuk to the students. He went to 2 schools already today. I couldn't go because I'm going to be with you. I have a date with you. Okay. You like it, right? So if I have a date with you, how can I leave? And he apologized to the great rabbi. I'm going to join him a bit later when he goes to our high school in the afternoon, Be'ezat Hashem. The high school, yeah, we're moving to a new location already, Habub. Yeah, we're going to a 3rd grade now, into 11th grade. 9th, 10th, and 11th. Sponsorships are available, but that's a whole different topic. Okay, my good friends? So we say Tizkela Mitzvot to all the sponsors. May Kadosh Baruch Hu help us that all the lessons that we learn in our life, we try to activate them to the best of our abilities. And in this Zachut, Hashem blesses everybody with a beautiful life. Have a good day, everybody. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.